It's another crazy day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Hasbro has just reported that its revenues are down 10%, and this is going to lead to another squeeze on Magic the Gathering. On top of that, we have a long-awaited update about the forgotten Magic the Gathering Netflix show.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another glorious installment of Mega Magic News. Today, we have the revenue situation with Hasbro that's going to lead to more money needing to be extracted from Magic the Gathering, and out of nowhere, we have confirmation that the Netflix show is still a thing. So you know what, let's talk about that because that's the smaller issue. Basically, what happened was Hasbro did their earnings announcement and a conference call. On that conference call, the CEO of Hasbro said, hey, you know that Magic Netflix show? It's still a thing. We're looking forward to it. But that's it. That's all that we have been told, right? So at this point, we still know nothing about when it's coming. We were expecting this like years ago at this point. It's at least a year or two late, and Netflix scrapped their animation department, so the whole future of this seemed in doubt. Having confirmation that it's coming is something to look forward to. Apparently, it will have a divergent story that does not overlap with the current magical world, so it'll give us something else to dive into while giving a little bit of side characters that we already know. Check it out. Here's Jace. Here's Chandra, although they might have changed the mix-up now that they're no longer focusing on Planeswalkers, because originally the story was going to focus on Planeswalkers. That might actually, now that I think about it, that might be part of the reason we haven't heard anything about it in a long time. They had to switch producers, and I guess went through rewrites, so ultimately, the show we get, is it going to follow a Planeswalker? Are we going to follow random characters through the Omen paths? Will Wizards have actually decided, you know what, let's actually have it line up with the sets? Although, that could go really wrong considering the written stories, the cards, and the trailers right now don't line up at all, right? They're all very disparate. So, it's interesting news to know that the Netflix series is still ongoing, and now I have absolutely no clue what to expect because all the information they gave us originally probably doesn't apply anymore because everything's changed about the way Wizards views Magic the Gathering. So, that out of the way, let's talk about what's going on with Hasbro, because what's going on with Hasbro directly impacts Wizards of the Coast. And I absolutely believe, based on all the information that's given, that Magic the Gathering prices are going up and we're going to get even more products specifically in the Universe Beyond categories. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So let's go over the different data points that we have from a combination of the quarterly earning report from Hasbro for the third quarter, plus the conference call that was given by the CEO afterwards. And you need to understand that Hasbro is in a brutal spot right now. So they basically are propped up by Wizards of the Coast. Hasbro only has a few different things that they lean on. It's kind of wild to think because when I was a kid, Hasbro was everything from my childhood. They made all the stuff that I watched. G.I. Joe, Transformers, all of it. Like, as time has progressed, I've seen more and more that Hasbro was responsible for tons of things like that. And they've been a dominant force for a very long time. But the problem is they're getting hamstrung now in multiple ways. One is in the toy market, right? Hasbro's always been big on toys. Get your Transformers, get your G.I. Joes. But the world is different now. G.I. Joes and stuff like that, they seem like crap compared to what kids can have access to now, right? You give a kid a tablet when they're 4 years old. Now, it's a crazy new cyber world we're living in. So you give a kid a tablet, right? And they're playing their little games and whatever. They're not really going to care that much about physical toys. They may like a few of them here or there, but the novelty of them wears off fast, and they're just going to be playing with apps and other things. And this isn't just a theory of some old yelling at the clouds man like me. This is what I think is going to happen. This is what's playing out. Hasbro's toy sales have been declining. It's just been going into the gutter. Businesses like Toys R Us basically collapsed and then had to try and be resurrected. There's all kinds of parts of the toy market have been gutted. And since Hasbro relied on that, they've lost a bunch of income. And the income loss continues like month over month, year after year. Just in Q3 of this year, it slumped like another 18%, according to what it said there. So it's brutal. The toy market is an absolute bloodbath, right? So moving into other areas where Hasbro makes their money, you've got the entertainment department. So you've got Wizards of the Coast and their digital gaming. You've got entertainment and you've got toys. Toys is a no-go and has been a no-go for a long time. They're still making money, right? Like, it's not like they don't make money. They have deals with Disney. They make money, but they make less and less money each year, which is a huge problem because as a corporation, they have to make money for the shareholders. That's the deal, right? Like, they have to make money to keep the company going and to pay out the shareholders. Those are two absolute necessities of the business. So you have the toy market that's slumping, and there's nothing they can do about that. They can't change the realities of the world, so they have to adapt and make the money where they can, right? So they have an entertainment division as well, where it's like, oh, hey, check it out. We'll make shows, we'll make movies. Well, you may or may not have heard about the writer's strike, where the writers of a bunch of shows, all of it, they basically banded together and said, we're going on strike, we're getting taken advantage of, we're not getting paid the same way we used to, because basically all the deals we had set up with like the TV companies and everything like that, the streaming services, we don't have the same rights and deals with those, so we're not really getting paid right, and we're not getting our share of everything, so we're just not going to write. And the thing about like studios is they just go, oh, you know what, you writers don't want to write? We don't need you. They seem to forget that writers are crucial, because without writers, you don't have a good story. You can't just get anyone to write a story. It doesn't work that way. It's not like go on over to the fry machine here, dip it into the deep fryer, keep your eye on the fries, it'll be fine. Some people can write well, some people can't. People can learn to be writers too, right? Like this is a skill though. So if you don't pay your writers, you don't have your writers. And so when you don't have your writers, you got to either make your own stuff or you just don't make it. And the companies aren't like, yo, we're just not going to make anything. They just go, we got to kind of cobble things together. But the writer's strike, apparently, now I don't know fully how much. They're saying it's a 42% reduction in their entertainment revenue. And they're saying that it's because of the writer's strike. But some of that might just be because they didn't make the right choices with their programming too. So you have a situation where if you're somebody in the higher up corporation over there at Hasbro, you go, well, when we're going to talk about how things aren't going well, why don't we pin all the blame on the writer's strike and not that we made some bad choices in terms of what to greenlight. So I don't know exactly how much of that is actually the writer's strike impact, but the writer's strike is a big thing that has had a massive impact. And as far as I understand, that's been resolved now. So going forwards, this shouldn't be an issue. There's been a number of writer's strikes throughout entertainment history, and you can actually see it if you go back in TV history. There will be shows that you're watching and you'll be like, this is pretty good, and then it just falls off and you're like, what happened, and why are there way fewer episodes? The writer strikes sometimes fundamentally change the face of television, and I guess now the internet and streaming services, right? It's a different world, and I'll be real, I thought that the writer strike wasn't going to go as well for them as it did, because in this new world, I figured all these companies are just like, well, we have the bargaining power, but at the end of the day, they need to churn content. That's what all these services are doing. So you have Hasbro that's in the same game, and now their entertainment income has dropped by almost 50%. This is wild, right? Remember, Hasbro has to deliver money to the shareholders. And they promised their shareholders, yo, we're going to be boosting our profits by 50% over the next 3 years. Because they made a promise previous to that where they said, we're going to double profits in 5 years. And they did that. So they basically raised the bar. And the shareholders like, all right, keep going. Give us more. So Wizards has to basically deliver. And because things like Magic 30th failed so miserably and didn't pull in the insane money that Wizards was expecting, they actually had to turn around, and Hasbro went, okay, we're bleeding out here. We're losing a bunch of money. How do we make the shareholders think everything's okay? We'll tell them we're cutting a bunch of the workforce. So Hasbro's cutting a bunch of their workforce. They're losing money in a bunch of different areas. The only place that is a lifeline for these guys is Wizards of the Coast and the digital gaming segment. All right. So, for example, Baldur's Gate and Monopoly are their biggest wins when it comes to the video game realm. They together for this quarter, they pulled in $63 million, which that's no joke, right? Baldur's Gate 3 came in and it turned a lot of heads, mine included, because it's not actually a microtransaction laden piece of garbage. When I started playing video games back in the day, you could just buy a video game and you could buy DLC, but the DLC would be an entire expansion that added a whole new world. And then we got to this new realm where you can buy a video game where they're like, well, actually, this video game isn't a video game so much as a content delivery system that you buy all the chunks inside of and constantly pay us for. And it just turned into this wasteland where you just go, I don't want any of it. But Baldur's Gate 3 isn't like that. It's just straight up, here you go, here's the game. You don't have a bunch of microtransactions. That is really solid. So Baldur's Gate 3 is actually a solid game too, with really nice graphics and amazing Dungeons and Dragons flavor. The mind flayers at the beginning, bro, putting the tadpoles up under people's eyes, climbing up into the brains, taking them over. It looks epic. The battle with the dragons where they warp through different dimensions. Baldur's Gate 3 is a win. And Monopoly Go is a win. I had to go and look it up. And it's such a win that when I opened up the Play Store to go and look for the app, it was the first thing recommended to me. They were like, yo, you want Monopoly Go? And I was like, oh, actually, let me take a look. So I looked at it. It's your standard issue Monopoly, but with a bunch of microtransactions. It looks like standard run of the mill, but either way, it's doing top notch in mobile game sales right now. So basically, it's pulling in all the microtransactions. It's the opposite of Baldur's Gate, I suppose. So you have a situation where together they bring in $63 million. Okay? But here's the thing. Lord of the Rings, since June, so basically like 3-4 months, it's broke $200 million in sales. So that by itself is triple what both those huge games made. And think about how long it takes to make a game like Baldur's Gate 3. It's going to continue to generate revenue for them, obviously. But Lord of the Rings is set to be sold for the rest of this year and all of next year as well. So understand that Lord of the Rings is the second set that has basically sold more than $200 million worth of stuff. And it's the highest selling set in Magic's history. So right now we have a situation where Hasbro's revenue is plummeting, right? You've got a 10% decrease, even with Magic and Wizards going, yeah, and the video games going, yeah, right? So overall, they're getting hammered. They got all this money coming in from Magic. Now they stated Disney is Hasbro's most valuable partnership, and Universe Beyond is a long-term multi-property strategy. So you can expect that Universes Beyond is going to persist until at least the end of the decade as a full-force juggernaut. Why wouldn't it? Lord of the Rings is the best-selling set of all time for them, and they can trumpet the numbers. The Marvel thing, they're going to get a repeat of it with that. Final Fantasy, it remains to be seen how much Final Fantasy will push the needle, but let's not pretend that it's as big as Lord of the Rings. Or Marvel, right? But this leads into other Disney partnerships for Wizards of the Coast as well, where they can have a ton of Universes Beyond. So they have a bunch of plans. They need a bunch of money, right? Not only do they have to pay their current employees, not only do they have to pay out the shareholders, but they have to innovate and grow as a company because they're stagnating right now, right? They have 3 limbs and 2 of them are limp and rotting, and their one leg that's Wizards of the Coast, they're leaping on it real hard going, keep strong, please don't fail, please don't fail. But there is a threshold that Magic can't go beyond where it just gets too expensive. And that's a real problem. And we're already seeing some of the maneuverings that Wizards of the Coast has done is butting up against that this is too much wall. So Magic 30 is the greatest example of this, where they said, buy 4 booster packs from us for $1,000. It's absolutely mind-blowing. If you've ever wondered how much it costs to produce a pack of Magic the Gathering cards, the actual materials to produce it, printing it, the whole thing, it costs about $0.25. Now, developing the set, that is more significant costs, and that's an interesting discussion because I've realized that just the art costs for a Magic set alone can come up to be about $500,000 depending on how things go. But at the same time, that's going to be their biggest expense overall is the artwork, where they have to pay like $1,000 a pop or whatever, right? Everything else is just going to be your employee's hourly wage and being able to lean on things that you've already created. So that's the biggest kind of price catch when it comes to the Magic the Gathering set. So Magic the Gathering sets are inexpensive to produce and they generate a ton of money, right? Like 25 cents a booster pack, and you're selling it right off to your distributors or whatever else, and then the end packs can sell for what? Depending on the price. Commander Masters, $25 a pack in the Canadian market. Commander Masters is another one that ran up against the wall. Magic 30 was the first one that ran into the wall, and it was the biggest one, right? Then you also have Aftermath, where they attempted to go, well, what if we sold you sets for packs for basically the same price, but reduce the number of cards in them considerably, pretty much like half packs, right? We just got rid of all the commons. Why don't you still buy it for full price? And so that was roundly rejected. And then Commander Masters ran into the wall too, where it had an even higher price tag, and the reprints it was bringing to the table weren't good enough. The language that Wizards of the Coast uses has also changed, basically, to start talking more financially. Mark Rosewater, for example, is talking about terms of the expected value. That's monetary value you would get out of a booster box, or your rare to dollar ratios. Like, Wizards of the Coast has changed quite a bit in the way that they view Magic the Gathering and the financial markets. And what the CEO had to say actually was, we're fortunate that Wizards of the Coast is a very margin-rich and highly cash-generative business. So like I said, margin-rich, basically what he's saying is this costs very little to produce and it makes banger money. Like the Lord of the Rings set, maybe, I don't know what the licensing costs. So that part is hard to guess. But a Magic set probably only costs maybe $1 million to make. Maybe I'm being a bit naive. Maybe it's a bit more than that. You know, I haven't ever sat down and crunched the numbers. This is the first time actually where I thought it would be interesting to sit down and try and break down the different costs of what it would take to put together a Magic set. And I think I might do a live stream like that over on my other channel in the future. But for now, I'm just kind of going off the basis that Magic sets are relatively inexpensive. Let's say it costs like $2 million to make a set, but you can sell it for $200 million, right? That's insane. And part of that is because Wizards of the Coast has inflated the prices of the packs. So here's the thing though, guys. After talking about how Wizards of the Coast is a very high margin business that generates a lot of cash, he went on to talk about how this money will be used to fund other long-term plans that they have. So they basically have other initiatives that they intend to use Magic as the piggy bank to pay for. It's not, let's reinvest this money into Magic. It's going to turn into, this is the only place that's giving us money. Like if Baldur's Gate and Monopoly can only generate $63 million inside of a quarter, and Lord of the Rings can basically generate, one set can generate you $200 million, 3 times that in a quarter, how are you not going to lean more into that and go, more money's got to come from that? There's got to be more money here. The fact that they thought they could sell $1,000 booster packs or $1,000 sets of 4 boosters shows you that they expect there's way more money in people's pockets. So I very much expect that going forwards, we're going to see multiple price increases just across the next year. Anything that's slated to be inside of Modern, that's outside of Standard, is going to get a price increase. And regular stuff is going to feel like it got a price increase because of the play boosters. Now, I've been told that the original set of play boosters for the first set, the Karlov Manor that will come out with them, will still be set at the same price as regular set boosters, but the boxes are going to be 30 packs to 36 packs now. So there's 6 more packs, so it does cost more, but there's more packs in there. So the price per pack remains the same. So Wizards isn't inching up the price of the play boosters to start with, but I do expect that to happen probably around mid-year, and each successive non-standard release they do is going to have increased prices. Think the same way Commander Masters did. So Commander Masters was expensive. We're going to get something that cost even more this year in the form of Modern Horizons 3 is going to come out, and probably another Master set, right? A Modern Horizons 3 will be more expensive than Modern Horizons 2, and the cards in it are guaranteed to shake up Modern and be something that you have to chase down and get, because Wizards of the Coast has fundamentally changed their business model in terms of how sets are built, right? So before, it went like this. You had your standard set, everything would grow from there. So all they worried about was making sure that standard was fine. And as long as standard is fine, everything grows from the base of standard. Commander players will come in and buffet sample it and go, oh, delicious. And modern players will turn their nose at almost everything except, yo, check out this one piece that goes in this. And every once in a while, like some new card or some new ability would come along that birthed a brand new idea in modern or something like that. And legacy players, they would, I mean, you know, you're playing vintage. You'd very rarely get anything that would really impact your old school deck. But that was fine. The old school players didn't really want a lot of shifting. They had a particular experience they wanted. But then Wizards of the Coast viewed Magic as Commander Town. And they went, okay, Magic's all about Commander. Most people play Commander. If most people play Commander, then Standard doesn't need to be the doorway. So why don't we turn Standard into forced rotation for every single format? And so that's what they did. Fire Design turned into make splashy, crazy, powerful cards that are guaranteed to be wanted by Commander players. They're wanted by all kinds of different people for different reasons. This is so broken that you need it. It's going to break Modern. You have to have it. Check it out. Here's Oko. It's so powerful. You're going to see it used alongside Black Lotus because it bursts its way into the old school format. That was their goal, and it worked really, really well. But the problem is now it's caused a whole bunch of issues where the way that it worked before, where we all grew from standard, it doesn't happen that way anymore. So Wizards sold a bunch of stuff into Commander. They changed the story and they just went, okay, we're not even gonna have Planeswalkers anymore really that much because then we could have more legendary characters to sell to Commander players. But then they realized, wait a minute, all these boxes and stuff that we make for standard, nobody's buying them. We're not selling all this product. We have a bunch of product rotting on the shelf. Part of the discussion that they had around all this talked about clearing out inventory. And we all remember seeing a bunch of Magic cards out in the dumps, right? So they overproduced a ton of Magic that they couldn't sell. That cost them money and cost them time at the printers that could have been used on other things that could have generated the money in the meantime, which means they have even more catching up to do, which is insane to think about for a company that literally is like ahead more than everything. Like Wizards of the Coast is further ahead than everything else Hasbro has to offer. But the corporate mentality doesn't go, you know what, you're doing a great job. Take some time off, relax, while we go ahead and boost up our other boys and get them working and get them feasible. It all just turns into, you have to work harder, you have to work harder, you have to work harder. It's like, I don't know if you guys have had this happen to you, but it's definitely happened to me. You're working at a place and one of your coworkers is like overworked and like, bro, I can't take this no more, man. I can't take it, I'm done. And they just leave, right? They're just like, I'm out. And then management's just like, all right, guys, Billy's gone, but we're going to buckle under, and we're not going to buckle under, I should say, and we're going to make this happen, right? We're going to go without him for the meantime, but we're going to bring somebody else in. And then everybody pulls in together, and then they go, oh, you know what? Numbers say we don't need to replace Billy. These guys are doing it all, so let's never bring in a new Billy and just not tell them. And then let's keep upping the workload. So that's the kind of vibe right now with Wizards of the Coast, where they have to give more and more money, and I can't think of anything that coughs up money faster than Magic the Gathering. These video games, how are you going to goose the numbers with Monopoly Go? You can only get so greedy with microtransactions, right? Before people leave your game. And even the reviews now are talking about how they're tweaking things and it's becoming less generous. So That's the way mobile games go, right? It's diminishing returns. Baldur's Gate 3 is just sell a copy to everybody, so you can keep selling those. But again, there's only so much money to be extracted. And over the long term, it's going to pay out, but it's probably not going to pay out more next quarter than it did this quarter. I don't know video game sales that much, but I'd say the majority of them happen at the beginning, right? So what gives money fast? Magic the Gathering. What can be created quickly? Secret layers, print to demand. Just get some art together, let's go. Artists can have a painting together in a week, so they can just keep cranking new products. So it's more products, more universes beyond, and higher prices for the foreseeable future. It looks like they're trying to fix standard, but everything else, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. Thanks for coming by and hearing what I have to say, my friends. Big shout out to my patrons. Thanks for supporting my channel. You guys rule. I will see you all for the next